That was pretty stressful, actually. And the internet was terrible all over Sedona. Just trying to get even a cell connection in a lot of places wasn't good. So if you're planning on going there, I would probably recommend not working unless you check with the Airbnb first or the hotel to see what their internet strength is.
Hi, I'm Kim Tolson and I'm the traveling therapist. It's my passion to teach therapists how to navigate online private practices and multiple income streams so they can travel the world. I'm a digital nomad with a virtual insurance-based private therapy practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship and developing tools that can help therapists live an adventurous lifestyle. In this podcast, I will discuss my journey as a digital nomad. I'll chat with other traveling therapists and help you navigate the complexities of running an online insurance-based practice. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Traveling Therapist Podcast. So every month or so, I'm trying to do a digital nomad update to let you guys know what's going on, how it's going being a digital nomad. And as I say every time, it has been really a lot of ups and a lot of downs and just a lot of fun in between. So this month was a total whirlwind for us. Like, we really hadn't even planned on being in Arizona for a whole month. It just sort of worked out that way. So it's been really amazing. We've seen definitely not all, but a lot of Arizona. So where I left off my last episode was we were in Houston and we were getting ready to go to Lake Worth, Florida. And then we did that. We went to Lake Worth, then we came back to Houston where our car was, and we drove from Houston to Phoenix. And then from Phoenix, we went to Sedona, and from Sedona, we went to Lake Havasu, and then we went back to Phoenix, and then we went to Page, Arizona for a couple days. And now we just landed in St. George, Utah, and we're going to be here for 2 weeks. I'm actually really grateful for these 2 weeks because we've been all over the place. And we both, frankly, just need a little break, just like the packing and the unpacking and going to new places. It's fun and exciting, but it's also, stressful trying to get acclimated to each new place. So let me just tell you what's been going on. So our journey back to Lake Worth, Florida, we went there because, one, we love South Florida, and two, Ken's daughter, Savannah, lives down in South Florida. So we wanted to go back and see her for a little bit. And we decided to fly Spirit because they're super cheap. But just a note about Spirit, it's pretty much a nightmare at the airports. If you haven't flown with them, their checkout or their process to check your bag is usually just total chaos. You have to wait in these long lines. They're like having people raise their hands if you've got a flight coming, so they could pull you out of line and help process you faster. It's just a real mess. So we've kind of decided if we're going to fly Spirit, we're just going to do carry-ons because we do have, what's it called, the TSA Pre-check and clear. So with carry-ons, we just walk right through. We don't have to go through the TSA line. Really, they have a special dedicated line for you where they don't even make you unpack your bag in these lines. You just go right straight through. So if you don't have TSA Pre or the clear, I would recommend getting that. We have both. So with clear, you get right through. And then with TSA Pre, they just put you right through the fastest line. They put you in front of everybody. And it just really helps cut down the airport chaos. And my credit cards, my Chase Sapphire Rewards card actually pays for clear. They reimburse me every year. So it's like a benefit or a perk. So sometimes credit cards do have that. Also, the TSA Pre, I think, was on that credit card too. They gave me a credit. The TSA Pre, if you don't know about that, it's $85, and I think it's good for 5 years. It's just the process. You go online to the website and you apply, and then they give you an appointment where you go into wherever the local office is, and they do your fingerprints, they do a background check. And I got mine back, my approval, I think it was 3 days through email. They give you a TSA Pre number, and then for all your airline tickets, you just add that number when you're booking your flight. And then the airline knows, and they just escort you right on through instead of having to wait in the long lines. So it's totally worth it. And it's pretty cheap. I mean, $85 for 5 years, or a lot of credit cards will reimburse you for it too as a perk. So that's just a side note with
back to Spirit Airlines. Our last time we were on Spirit, we got on the plane and then we had to get off because there weren't enough pilots to fly us. So it was about a 3-hour delay, and all the flights after us got canceled. Luckily, ours was the very last one that they were going to like provide pilots for. We just had to wait, and then we made it to Lake Worth. So anyway, and once we got to Lake Worth, just a little side note about airports. Las Vegas is like this, in Fort Lauderdale. There's all kinds of Ubers you can call on the Uber app, and it's usually a wait, and they've got like a dedicated line for Ubers, but there's also usually a line for taxis there. And, I think a lot of us have gotten out of the habit of using taxis, but at least for Fort Lauderdale and Las Vegas, the taxis were way cheaper than the Ubers. Uber and Lyft, they have these surge prices that happen. And I think they know like when flights are landing, because it seems like we always get the surge prices when we try to use those. So instead, we just walk right to the taxi stand and you just pay whatever the rate is for the taxi. There's no changes in prices based on the time of day. So that's just a little tip. So we flew into Fort Lauderdale. Our other car is there in storage. So we took a taxi to where our car was and it started right up. We were kind of worried sitting like that for a couple of months if the battery was even going to start, but it did, luckily. So we had the car while we were down there, and then we went on to Lake Worth and we stayed in this really cute Airbnb. The internet was horrible. You guys have heard me say this before, but every time, I complain to an Airbnb about the Wi-Fi or anything, the answer always is, that's never happened to us before. We don't know why that's happening. So in Lake Worth, I had to go to the local library, which is really becoming my new best friend, to find the local library in every town, especially with all these fluctuating Wi-Fi services that we're getting in these different places. So, even in Lake Worth, I had to go to the library. And at the library, the up speed was 123 megabytes per second. And I think like 80 down, it was like super fast. So I had a number of Zoom meetings and a training that I was doing that day. All of that I was able to do at the library, thank goodness. So anyway, let's see. So we went to Lake Worth. It was great. We got in the ocean again for the first time since January, which I just love that about South Florida. You could pretty much get in the ocean almost all year round. So that was really nice to just go and hang out on the beach and swim. Lake Worth, is okay. It's surrounded by like Boca Raton and Delray. Those places are really super nice. I love those places. Lake Worth was just all right. It was a cheaper Airbnb, so that's kind of what got us there. So, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. That's just where we ended up. But Boca Raton and Delray are both really nice in that area. So let's see, we went out to Lake Worth. We left there. Okay. So then we had our Spirit flight back, where we opted to upgrade to the exit rows, which on Spirit, the exit rows are excellent. There is tons of leg room. And I think it was like $20 a person or something like that to upgrade. And we're totally going to do that again. And wherever on Spirit, it's very much worth it. The other thing on Spirit is you can upgrade to like the big seats, they call them. I think that's what they're called. Those are also better. They give you a little bit more room. Okay, so we left Florida and we came back on Spirit to Houston, where our other car was parked. We hopped in the car and we went from Houston and we were driving all the way to Phoenix, Arizona. So just a little side note about the parking in Houston. We did leave our car there. We found a covered parking lot called Eco Parking. It was $9 a day. And, our car was protected from the weather and all that stuff. And it wasn't that expensive. Just a little side note. If you look at these airports, you can find Eco Parking or reduced rate parking, usually around the airport. They've got other lots that like are right there at the airport. So anyway, we got back to Houston, got our car, hopped in the car, and the intent was to split up our drive from Houston to Phoenix over 2 days. So we basically just drove until we were exhausted and couldn't go any further. And we ended up in Van Horn, Texas. And, it's this cute little hotel. It was called El Capitan was the name of the hotel in Van Horn, Texas. Like, who knew there was this really cute boutique hotel there? But it was funny when we got in, because apparently this is the halfway point for a lot of people. The guy, when we checked in, he said, let me guess, you're either from Florida, Georgia, or Houston. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, we were like total cliches. And he's like, yeah, just about everybody stops here. It just seems to be like the halfway point between Houston and where people are going, like to Arizona. So that was pretty funny. It was a really cute hotel. So if you're ever on that road from Houston to Phoenix, that's a good halfway point. It's super cute. It had a restaurant and it was historic. It's been there forever. So anyway, so we're driving to Phoenix the next day. And, of course, the time zones are starting to change again. So the time zones are always a thing that we're trying to keep up with. So it turns out in Arizona, they're on mountain time, but they don't observe daylight savings time. So it's really like being in Pacific time when you're in Arizona right now, this time of year, which at the time of this recording is May or April to May. And to complicate it more, most of Arizona doesn't use daylight savings time, but the Navajo nations do. So as you're driving through Arizona, there are periods where the time zones are changing, just depending on if you're going through like a Navajo reservation or, well, I'll talk more about this, but we've done some excursions and some of them were on the Navajo nations and the time zones were different, like our clocks would change. So that's just something to note, I guess, if you're going to be traveling through Arizona. So anyway, our drive from Van Horn to Phoenix, it was a really interesting drive. I really enjoyed it. I've never been through like Western Texas and through those states. So that was pretty cool. We went through El Paso, which is, down at the border where the wall is. And we saw Juarez, which was on the other side of El Paso, which is the Mexican side. So it's pretty interesting because you could actually see the wall that was starting to be built and you could see where it just sort of stopped. And if you follow the news or anything, Juarez, has got a lot of immigrants coming in from Juarez into El Paso, and it's quite the issue down there. So it was just interesting to drive through and just see all of that happening down there. El Paso is a beautiful town. The infrastructure, the roads, the bridges, everything is just really pretty. It was a really neat town to drive through. So that's just part of our drive. The other part is we're driving basically through the Western Texas desert, which is beautiful. If you've never just driven like on an open desert road, it's just really amazing. Dust tornadoes, I guess they call them dirt devils or sand devils off in the distance, just like swirling in the sky. Apparently on these roads, dust storms are a thing. Like that was totally new to me. And there are signs everywhere that says like if a dust storm comes through, stop, pull over, turn your car off until the dust storm passes because you might have zero visibility. So it's basically like, what I'm used to in Virginia, like a blizzard or a lot of snow. It's, these sandstorms just come through and you can see them coming across the desert. We're in a convertible. So some of the time we've had to pull over and just put the top up because all of a sudden these huge dust storms were coming through. So that was totally new to me. Another tip when you're traveling to these places like down through the desert, make sure you fill up your gas tank. We filled up every time we came to, they're called Love's truck stops down in Texas and through these southern states. So that's like the most popular truck stop. And they're spaced out. They're like 50 miles, 70 miles. So sometimes you might go quite a while without having access to gas. So every time we pulled over, we filled up, even if it was just like 10 or 15 bucks to just top the engine off, because you just don't know when the next gas station is going to be. So from Houston, we drove through the desert and finally we ended up in Phoenix, Arizona, which is beautiful. That's where like Scottsdale is. We didn't spend a lot of time in Scottsdale, but it's kind of the fancy part of Phoenix. We got there and we were staying in the Waldorf Astoria Biltmore for 11 days. And that was part of the Inspirato travel club that I'm a member of, the luxury travel club. This was a property that was open for 11 days straight, which was really cool. Super fancy hotel. If anybody's ever been to like a Waldorf Astoria, that they're pretty fancy. There's like 6 pools, bars, restaurants, everything's really expensive. One thing I do, or I've started to do in these hotels is requesting a microwave in the room because there is a mini fridge, but there's no way to eat really unless you're going to restaurants all 3 meals. And especially in a property like this, it's just super expensive. So we do request a microwave. We get a lot of frozen microwave meals where you could just heat them up and have something to eat. Oatmeal, granola bars. We keep like some almond milk in the refrigerator. I keep some coffee creamer because I love to have coffee creamer in my coffee. What else do we keep in there? Sometimes like some ham or something to make a sandwich, that sort of thing. It just cuts down on the cost. And usually there's a grocery store pretty close that you can either do like an Instacart from if you don't have a car with you, or you could just obviously just drive or walk to get some groceries. Usually we try to walk if it's pretty close, which gives us some exercise as well. So that was a cool experience, the Waldorf Astoria. Of course, I'd never pay for these places myself unless, I had $1 million, because they're like, these places are like $1,200 a night for a 1-bedroom hotel room. It's nice, but it's not like, I don't know. I don't think it's worth that much money, but it's cool to be able to stay in these places that I would obviously never pay for otherwise. So that was a fun experience. And then from the way the Inspirato, the luxury club works is, I can't book my next one until we check out to the day of checkout on the current one. So that's sort of how it works. So the day of checkout, there were a couple of places that we were thinking about going, but the Waldorf Astoria was actually opened back up in a couple of weeks. So we thought we would just come back there since we were going to be hanging out in the Arizona area. So we booked another one for later in the month, and I'll tell you more about that. So let's see, what else do I want to talk to you guys about? Okay, so, all right, this might seem like totally vain, but 2 problems I'm running into with being a digital nomad is birth control and getting my hair done. This might seem like something you don't think about, but it has come up because, obviously I'm 46 years old. My hair is gray for the most part under this pretty color I've got, so it's hard to find a hairstylist that can do my hair that can match the color. So that's been a bit of a process. And then, a lot of these nicer places that might have really good colors are booked. So if you're in a place for a week, I'm finding that I'm having to like research, call ahead, book something, is like literally every 4 weeks, I'm having to go get some sort of like color touch up. And I know, it's probably not that big of a deal. I could just let it go gray, but I don't know. I'm not ready for that yet. So this has been sort of a struggle. And I would just say, like, think about that if you're going to be doing something like we're doing. And my birth control. So, I had to recently switch my health insurance to a health insurance that supports the digital nomad kind of lifestyle. But with that, I'm running into a problem with getting birth control. So I did find this company called Nurx, Nurx, that will like ship you birth control. They have a doctor on call, and the doctor will just write you for your birth control if that's what you need. So basically I found that company, but they're having to mail it. So I've got them mailing me like 3 packs at a time to my mom's address, which is in Florida. And then mom's having to mail it to me. So that's been an issue. Now, if you have, a regular doctor and health insurance in your state, you can have your doctor called into a CVS or something like that. And, obviously have it transferred to a pharmacy wherever you're traveling to. I hope that helps some if you run into these problems at all while you're traveling. It definitely has come up all through Arizona. Yeah, just things to take into account, digital nomad things that I never thought about before we started this journey. So let me get back to our journey through Arizona. So after the 11 days at the Biltmore, we decided to go to Sedona, a place I went one time before for one day. And I was like so in love with it. I've always wanted to go back. And it just happened to be the week of my birthday too. So I was like, all right, we're going to Sedona. I want to go there. I just have always wanted to return to this place. So we packed up after 11 days and we headed to Sedona. So Sedona is surrounded by all of these beautiful red rock structures, mountains, pathways, hiking trails. It's just amazing. And it's also supposedly surrounded by what they call vortices or vortexes. There's 6 points around Sedona that are supposedly said to emit some sort of spiritual energy out of the rocks. So a lot of people are there like meditating. It's kind of a hippie place. I never really felt any energy like that, but it is a beautiful place. It's gorgeous if you've never been. I've got pictures up on my personal Facebook page, and I'll probably be putting a blog post on thetravelingtherapist.com too, just showing the pictures and everything that we went through. We got an Airbnb there, and it was this Airbnb down this sort of dirt road. We didn't even realize it was going to be a dirt road until we got there. It was this cute little house, but the internet, once again, was terrible. We had no cell reception. It was around it kept saying 3G on our phones. So anyway, needless to say, I once again had to utilize the public library, which, as I said before, is becoming my new best friend. I had to go up, get the password. And of course, all of my stuff is scheduled on East Coast time. The library doesn't open until 10. So I'm starting at 6 a.m., sitting out front of the library, trying to do these Zoom calls, podcast interviews. I did a billers meeting, all of that stuff sitting outside of the library, which is okay. It was fine, except for a lot of the homeless population in Sedona hang out there as well. So a couple times during my meetings, people just showed up and they're just screaming and trying to talk to me, and I'm having to say, hang on a second. So that was pretty stressful, actually. And the internet was terrible all over Sedona. Just trying to get even a cell connection in a lot of places wasn't good. So if you're planning on going there, I would probably recommend not working unless you check with the Airbnb first or the hotel to see what their internet strength is. But other than that, it's a beautiful place. The hiking trails are amazing. We went to our Airbnb was near Red Rock State Park. We went there and did some hiking. There's a airport mesa trail that was beautiful. We did a hiking trail called Soldiers Pass, which I absolutely loved. It takes you all the way up the mountain and past what they call the sacred pools, 6 sacred pools of water, which actually turned out to just be these kind of mud puddles. But it was still neat to walk through there. And there's just the scenery there is just beautiful when you're walking through. So that was Sedona. There's some good restaurants. There was a winery down in the main drag of the downtown Sedona. I went there and tasted some wines. That was really fun. One thing about Sedona and all of Arizona really is the climate is so dry. I've noticed just sort of getting bloody noses and my sinuses and my whole body is just acting differently with the dry temperature. So I don't know if that's something you get used to if you live in these places longer or not, but for me, it's caused some sinus type things. But other than that, the temperature, the weather is pretty great because there's no humidity. So it's like a dry heat, even when it's really hot, even when it feels 95 degrees out, it doesn't feel like the same kind of heat I'm used to in Florida and Virginia, where it's super humid. So after Sedona, we decided to leave there and go to Lake Havasu City. And that was really cool. We just happened upon that place because, again, the Airbnbs there seemed much lower and it was on a body of water. So we thought it'd be fun to go there and check it out. So we went to Lake Havasu. I think we were there 5 or 6 days in the Airbnb. It was probably the nicest Airbnb we've ever stayed in. It was this really cute house. The internet there was fantastic. It had this nice back deck where you could see Lake Havasu in the distance. It was really pretty. Lake Havasu is beautiful. Havasu actually means blue water. So when you look out over Lake Havasu, it's just really gorgeous. And an interesting little fact about Lake Havasu is the original London Bridge is there in Lake Havasu, which there's history behind it, but I thought that was pretty interesting that it was just right there down in the main downtown area where people go for dinner and where the canals are. People are water skiing and jet skiing all through there, but you cross over London Bridge. So there is a funny story that happened while we were down there. We were, we have this car, this BMW that's kind of fancy. It's got all these gadgets and everything, and it actually can detect when something runs in front of your car. It actually slams on the brakes for you to prevent accidents. So anyway, I'm driving across the London Bridge, and all of a sudden the car slams on the brakes and a little image, a red digital image of a person pops up in my dashboard. It says that there was a person right there, and that's why it slammed on the brakes. I was like, oh my God, because there was nobody there. The bridge was empty. There was nothing in front of us. And all of a sudden the car just slammed on the brakes. And Ken and I just looked at each other. We were like, what was that? And, we just kept going. But then after, we left the bridge and we parked, I was like, oh my God, what in the world? So I'm researching the London Bridge. And of course, there's all these haunted stories about the London Bridge. People have seen all kinds of different people on the bridge. And, there's a lot of history and tragedy surrounding that bridge. So back in London, it was during the Black Plague and all that. There were a lot of deaths around the bridge. I think it was originally built in 1830, they said, and then they moved it there to Lake Havasu in 1971. So there's a ton of history around that. But anyway, of course, I'm like more of a woo-woo kind of person. And I think that there was a ghost on the bridge and the car detected it and slammed on the brakes. I think that's what happened. Ken, on the other hand, he's like super logical. He thinks there were probably like people walking the walk on the side of the bridge, and the car probably picked that up, and that's why it slammed on the brakes. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. And if you're into ghost stories, check out Lake Havasu, the London Bridge, ghost stories. There's tons of like ghost hunter episodes on YouTube about it. So that was Lake Havasu. We, did a lot of walking around the trails there. It was really beautiful. We tried to swim, but the water was still pretty much too cold to get into. But we did like at least spend one afternoon kind of down on the beach hanging out. It was really nice. And then let's see, what else did I want to tell you guys? Oh, while I was there in Lake Havasu, my cell phone got hijacked or SIM jacked or something. Researching it, there's a term SIM jacked, where somehow people like take control over your SIM card and your cell phone, and they steal your phone number essentially. So that was a total nightmare. We have Straight Talk Wireless was the plan that we had, because it actually was the only one that gave us good reception when we lived in Hollywood. And, we were both using Straight Talk Wireless, but Ken had something similar happen last year to his, and then this happened to me. So it took me about, 9 days to get my phone number switched over to AT&T and get this issue resolved. So I was without a phone for that long, no access to my phone number. So it was very stressful actually to navigate that and not have my phone. Luckily, I had like the Google Fi as a backup. So I was able to have a device where, I could take it with me. I could still have a phone number. I could still text, Ken if I was out and need to get a hold of him. But if I didn't have that backup, I would have been without a phone or without, access to really the internet outside of our Airbnb, which, it's fine, but it's when you're used to not having it, it's pretty stressful. Or when you're not used to having it, it's pretty stressful. So that happened. Just a side note, protect yourself with changing your passwords and keeping PINs up to date and not using common passwords, because these people are constantly trying to get access to all of our, devices and whatnot. So just a side note that did happen. And I'm glad I had a backup. Google Fi, at least you can turn it on and off. So it's not always charging you a monthly charge, and you can have that in case an emergency happens. So just thought I'd share that with you guys as well. So from Havasu, we went back to Phoenix, because that's what I was saying before. We had the Inspirato option through Inspirato to book it again. So we booked the Waldorf Astoria again for 5 days. And we went back that time and just totally relaxed. I was pretty stressed out from the phone thing and just us moving around and going all these different places. It does get tiring. So try to relax a little bit there. And this is just a little side note about having multiple income streams. I know you guys hear me talk about that a lot. And the course will be coming soon as I get this all straight and get it to you. I'm so excited about the course. I think we got 15 contributors at this point. There are, let me see if I can tell you what we've got going on right now. So we've got a module on international therapy practice. We've got, let me go look it up. I'm going to tell you guys everything in there. It's super exciting. This is the course kind of I wish I'd had before I started. Okay, so we have intro piece that I did for the traveling therapist course, and it's just talking about like the general basics of everything you kind of need to know when you're starting out. And then Melissa Alaba did money mindset for freedom. So helping you get out of any kind of locked money mindset that's keeping you stuck from being able to be a traveling therapist. Amber Lyda contributed online therapy and how to get it going quickly so you can travel. Patrick Casale contributed to how to take time off every single month and plan for that. Just work that into your schedule and your budget and everything else. He takes off a week, a month, I think, and goes different places. So he talks about that. Cindy Gozanski talks about couples and traveling and how to like work on your traveling styles if you have different traveling styles, desires, and wishes. Then Jenny Schottmiller contributed business travel deductions, and Jen Hyatt did navigating time zones. She's in Japan, California, and Virginia time zones, navigating that. I did a training on how to build multiple income streams. That's in there. We've had someone contribute how to put your content on autopilot so you don't have to worry about it too much. That's Tara Trottier and Megan Tack. And then online group practice, how to work from anywhere. Lisa Lovelace contributed that. And we've got Megan Gonnell contributed how to build your dream retreat and be able to travel the world and run retreats. And we've got Tamara Howe doing an introduction on international therapy. Who else do we have? Janine Wolf is contributing like how to seek peer support while you're traveling on the road because it can be isolating and lonely. We've got Maureen Flory is doing minimalist packing techniques. We've got a presentation around mindset in the traveling therapist. That's Andrea Shipley. And then, gosh, who else? There's like 3 more in here. We've got Katrina Haynes is contributing like tax implications when you're multi-state and tax implications when you're international. She addresses that. We got another course around traveling therapist mindset around just like good self-care. So there's so much in this course. It's unbelievable. And then the Traveling Therapist podcast, I'm putting all the episodes, like the actual video interviews, every single one of them in there. I think I've got like almost 50 recorded at this point. And I'm putting them all in there. So the people that get the course are going to get access to all of those like way early. And they're all different topics. And then there's a whole section on travel tips, tricks, suggestions, things to make it go smoother for you. So that's the course. I'm so excited. Like I said, some of it was deleted, but I'm, tenacious and I'm going to put it all back in there. So it's all going to be there for you. It's just going to take a little bit longer now because I had this setback. But anyway, let me see if there's anything else I wanted to tell you. Oh, I almost forgot. Okay, so after the Waldorf Astoria, we left there and we had like 3 days to kill before I had to be in St. George, Utah. I'm in St. George right now. We just got here last night, and I'm here because I've got a conference or like a summit with Megan Gunnell. It's like called the Thrive Summit, and it's over 4 days, and it's happening in St. George, Utah. So we decided to come here a week early. So we're going to be here for 2 weeks and give us a week to just explore and hike and go to Zion National Park, which is just right next door, and then also do the conference next week. So there's going to be a lot going on, but that's why we're here in St. George. So from the Waldorf Astoria, we hopped in the car, we drove to Page, Arizona. We stayed there 3 nights. And if you've never been there, I highly recommend it. We went to, it's called Antelope Canyon. It's an area where you've probably seen the pictures. There's these beautiful canyons with these red and white colored walls and the sunlight shining down through. So we got to go and do that. And I posted a bunch of pictures on my Facebook page, but it is so beautiful. If you get the chance, go through it. We couldn't get tickets to Antelope Canyon because it was last minute, but there's another canyon right next door. It's called Canyon X, which if you look at the pictures, it was amazing. So we got to go through that. And then we also took a little drive down to Horseshoe Bend, which is, you've probably seen pictures of that. It's part of Lake, I guess that's Lake Powell, where the water cuts through the mountains. And it's this big bend where you can walk down to the overlook and look down over it and just really take in the beauty of that. That was okay. There's so many tourists in a lot of these places. It's like, it's hard to even get a good picture, but we did get to go down there and look around. It was really neat. So if you get a chance, stop by Page, Arizona. Also, there's so much to do there. Yeah. So that's basically the last month of the digital nomad journey. Right now, the plan is after St. George, we're going to drive for 4 days to Nashville, where I've got another conference with Ernesto Sigismundo. If you guys know him, the Not Your Typical Psychotherapist, I'm a sponsor there, and I'm going to drive there. We're going to stay there for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5 days. Ken is not going to hang out in Nashville. I'm going to be rooming with somebody and hanging out with her. It's in the Sheraton there in Nashville. So Ken's just going to take off. He doesn't care about going to Nashville. He's not really like a bar scene kind of person. And he's going to go maybe find some mountains to hang out in until I'm over with that. And then we are headed to Fort Lauderdale, where we have another Inspirato for, I think it's 12 days in Fort Lauderdale, right on the ocean, the Conrad Hotel, which is really nice if you've never been there. And again, a place that's beautiful, but I'd never pay for it if I wasn't part of this luxury club. So that's what's going on with me. I hope some of this information helps, and let me know what you're up to. I'd love to hear from you guys. If you're traveling or if you've got tips or tricks or anything you want to share, I'd love for you to email me. I love hearing from you guys. People are emailing me all the time just saying, hey, I'm in so-and-so. If you ever go, like, here's something you should check out, or, oh, I discovered this like travel hack. Just wanted to let you know. So I'm getting all kinds of emails, and I just love hearing from you guys. So if you feel like it, reach out to me, info@kimtolson.com, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Therapist podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to thetravelingtherapist.com, where you'll be able to learn more about my journey, the courses I've created for you, and other exciting resources to make your dreams become a reality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your traveling therapist friends, subscribe to the podcast, and if you loved this episode, please leave a review.